so my fams, I'm so excited and happy. I feel blessed and highly honored for your follows, for your subscribing, for your likes, for your comments. God bless you. And because of you, I'm able to make more beautiful videos. And today we're going to make 3 steps of a gown. And so I'll show you how to make the steps of a gown like this and how to make the flare in such a way that it doesn't have to start with the gathers at the beginning. So we're going to make it in such a way that the gathers will be below, but at the rim it's going to be flat. So these outfits are good for people who have bulgy tummy and they won't want gathers to make it more bulgy. So they want something light there and then a flare down. So we have 3 steps of it, and I'll show you how to use fabrics and not have to consume a lot of fabric, but use in such a way that you make a whole lot of it with little quantity of fabric, but still get the beauty you desire. If you have any comments, please pour it on me. If you have something for me to make, I'll line them up and I'll make sure I get them done. Everything that you tell me to make and everything you tell me about, I've recorded them down and I'm going to get them done because I love you and you guys are the best. So stay tuned and watch. First, we're going to deal with the flares. After the flares, the sleeve and then the top. So first, you'd see that we've cut out the flare measurement. So the flare measurement is radius equals to circumference 2 pi. So we're using the waist measurement to deal with it. So as we've seen it before, the length of the skirt is 37 inches. So the radius entirely is 5.728 inches plus allowance will give us 6.728. So you'd see at the top there are steps. The first step will be 9 plus 1, which is 10 inches. 1 is the allowance for sewing. So we might add the allowance at the fabric and not necessarily at the radius. And then we have 12 plus 1, 13 inches for the second step, and 14 plus 1, 15 inches for the third step. So to cut out the flare, I will, because there's a peculiar design at the rim, you can see at the edge of this fabric. So what I'm going to do is I would rather cut it shorter so that I would cut that rim and add. I'll show you at the end how I'm going to cut and add. So I did 8 inches plus the radius and then got 14.75 and drew it all around like this. So you can just get the radius, you calculate your radius, then add it up with the length of the first flare. So I drew it out like this, a circle from the center point, and then the radius. So I drew out the radius, which was discovered to be 5.785. So what I usually do is I go higher so that if it's too small, all I have to do is add rather than it being too wide. So I draw it out like this, then cut out everything. Then you can see how it looks when it's opened up like this. So I still took the measurement, take my tape, and I'll measure around to see if it's fitted. If it's not, I can add rather than it being too wide. So it's perfect. So I folded it into 3. And measuring the height, it's about 8 inches, then 8 to 9 inches. So I measured, this is just to add for the second step. So the second step, I would use a lining underneath. So I'll use this to cut out the lining underneath. Although the lining underneath has to be smaller than the first flare, the first tier. So you can see how many it is, up to 6 parts. And this as well, up to 6 parts. So I used it to cut out the top of it. Use the chalk on it, then use the scissors to trim it. And after trimming it, I just measured the height I would love, 7 inches, and it's less than what we'd want. So it's like 2 inches off it, and then measured 9 inches. So 9 inches all around. Then I cut it out. So after cutting it out, you'd see the difference. You'd see that there are 2 round shapes. So now these 2 round shapes will be divided again. Each of them will be divided and joined together. So I'll just find a matching line between both of them, cut it straight, and do the same with the other one as well. You see that when all the shapes are joined together, it just gives the rim around the waist. So you see? So I'll join it together and sew. After cutting out the white lining, I have the measurement of
the down part. You remember that part I left out when I was cutting out the fabrics. So I joined it to the white lining like this, and you can see our second layer has been created. Now the second layer is quite long, so I want to cut it short. So I'll cut it short at the rim so that I'll balance it out with the top layer. So now see how the lower layer is. So all of them are all the same length. I left the same length for all, but I'll cut out the second layer at the rim and join to the first one like this. You can see I joined it already. I cut it out and joined to the top so that everything is balanced. See the little rim I added there? And so I measured it, and this is 10 inches entirely, 10 inches. And the second layer, total of it is 15. You can see 15 inches. And the lining, 6 inches after joining the top and bottom. As well as the down part, I also did the rim. So this is 21.5, so the full length of the skirt. And that is 9 inches. So you can see behind, and then this is going to be the front part because we're going to put buttons in the front and the back is going to be closed up. So what I'm going to do is, this is the part I'll be joined together the last, while these other ones will be sewn at the rims. As the first and second layer will be sewn at the rims. Now for the sleeve, we measured the width is 18 inches, breadth 14 inches. And so I left 2 inches at the top there and drew a line, and then at the bottom 3 inches, and I will draw a line. I'll show you the reason why these lines have been drawn, while the sleeve measurements, the normal sleeve measurement will be in the middle. So I'll show you how to quickly draw a sleeve measurement in the middle of the top 2 and the bottom 3 inches. Measuring the middle part, you'd see that it's 9 inches. So from the side, I would measure and go out by 9 inches. If you'd want to get up to 10 inches, you do 9, so that when you go down, you can be able to get the full sleeve. 8 inches if you'd still want to make it smaller to 9.5, and thereabout. So in this case, I'm marking 9 inches because the sleeve is going to be around 20 to 21 inches wide. So I go down by 3.5 inches, and sometimes I go by 4.5, 5 inches, just depending on how deep you want to go. So it's your choice. I want it to go deep so that it will have that, how like the gathers, the puffiness. So I'll go deeper. So in this case, I started with 3.5 inches and measured from the side 7 inches, and know that the curve is going to go down at that 7 inches by half an inch. So I use my curve ruler to go down and meet that point. You remember the 9 inches, meet that point to the 3.5. But like I said, as I'm going on, I added it to 5 inches, so it's not just 3.5, and use the marker to mark it out. So I measure the width of the arm. So her arm is around 12 inches. So I marked the 12 inches. So I'd want it to be puffy enough or wide enough. So you'd measure the width, and so measure the length of around the sleeve, which should be around 11 to 12 inches. So I went a bit deeper so that the curve will go deeper, and folded it in so it's slimmer. So I measured it again, you can see here. So I want there to be an allowance to sew. So I measured it deeper by 5 inches. So using my marker, I made it darker so you can see it clearly. Now for the reason for the 2 inches we left at the top, so we're going to add 2 inches all around. So I marked it there to know where exactly our gathers is going to stop and where I would want to join it to the sleeve. So we're going to mark the same point on the sleeve as well. So we would draw 2 inches all around. That's for the allowance. While at the bottom part, you'll see an oval shape. So I drew an oval shape at the bottom to ensure that the puffiness is at the top as well as the bottom. So don't forget to leave an allowance for sewing all around. So since there was not enough at the top, I ensured I indicated ½ inch to be added at the top for sewing allowance. So after it has been cut out, I placed it on the fabric like this. So you can see this was the first thing I cut from the fabric because I wanted to leave the flare with that design at the bottom part. So I placed the sleeve on top of it and cut it out. And same thing with the front and back of the top. So I used the normal cutting pattern for the front and back. So for the sleeve, you can see it has been cut out as well as the lining, and that ½ inch has been added to it. So this is how it's going to be, and I'll sew the sides first, then turn it around and notch all those gathers at the top and bottom part. Now you'd see after cutting it out, I cut out the lining as well. You can see the lining all cut out. There's a front with our allowance for sewing in front, 1½ inch, and then the back as well. So what I'm going to do is I will iron on top of it an ST. I used the medium hard ST to iron on it for the buttons in the front. So the buttonholes and the button, just to give it that firmness. So here is how it looks after ironing the ST to it. So I'm going to sew round the neck down as well as the other side too. I'll sew round the neck and down, turn it around and iron it, press it down. So here's the sleeve after it has been sewn at the edges, like I said before, and then sewn all around to make the gathers. So I'm going to make the gathers and sew it, you'd see. So we'll start from the points where we notched, like I showed you earlier, and make the gathers. So here it is after the gathers have been made. I'll turn it around. You see the top and the bottom part. See how puffy it is. The lining I used was the hard lining so that it will stand up, because the fabric itself is not so strong. So the fabric is very light and soft. So I used a hard lining to ensure the puffiness stands. And so here is the top part after it has been sewn. You see I sewed the back together. The back has no opening, and then the sides, what I usually do is I place it like this and then measure it again to ensure that the correct measurement is placed on the fabric before sewing on the sides. So here is the sleeve after it has been sewn. So I'm going to attach the sleeve to the rhyme, and then this is the belt for the lower part of the skirt, and as well as the belt line, I used 1½ inch to sew round the rim of the puffy sleeve. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and you see how I sewed the inside of the sleeve so that it doesn't show outside. So I joined the right side and the right side of the fabric, as well as the wrong side and the wrong side of the lining, and sewed it. So you'd see I'll sew the belt all around as well as the belt for the rim of the puffy sleeve, and then we go to the next step. So here it is after I've joined all the parts together. I was just contemplating on different buttons to place on it, and then you see how I sewed the 1½ inch fabric on the rim. So I used her exact measurement, and here it is. Voila! So gorgeous. I love the outcome of it, and I know it will look even more beautiful on her. Thank you for watching. Bye.